Hello, my creative friends, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Prompts. I'm going to, in this episode, sort of carry on a little bit from what we talked about yesterday. I'm going to personalize it a bit and sort of explain what I'm doing, what I'm about, what I'm trying to achieve through all this. There's been a little bit of confusion, I guess. I think there's just it's a little awkward that we don't all still quite know what this is and what this is about and what this is for. So I wanted to sort of just lay it out there. I've already talked about my master plan, but that's the big pie in the sky stuff. That's the big, like, long-term vision. Yesterday, based upon what we talked about, the new strategy, I want to show you my new strategy. So my sort of roadmap to where we're trying to get with all this. So I firmly believe in what I talked about yesterday about how the industry has changed. Accessibility is open to all of us now. Really, now it becomes a meritocracy. Now it becomes anyone can make movies anywhere on the planet, so go to it. The big challenge that we have is that if you make movies today, if you just rush out and start making movies based upon what I said yesterday, what you're going to see is the same problem that we have in the screenplay world, where there's like tens of thousands of screenplays vying for people's attention. You're going to have the same problem in the film world. You already do have that problem, really, and really always have. There's always been an indie film segment that has been making films and not being able to get noticed. There's thousands of films made every single year that most people don't know anything about. So my point is, to treat that as a way to develop your screenwriting and storytelling skills. So if you just rush out, you say, Jeff's right, anybody can make a movie and anybody can distribute a movie today. I'm going to go out and make a movie, and over the next week or two, without the skills that I'm going to be talking about throughout the series and that I teach, if without all those skills, you're going to go out and you're just going to make something, that thing is actually going to work against you, because that thing was not made with skill and craft and talent and love and affection. It was made to try to just put yourself out there because you're in a rush to try to get to mastery or to the top. You're not even trying for mastery. You just want to get noticed. The great challenge is this. If anyone can make a movie, everyone can make a movie, right? So if everyone's making a movie, I said at the beginning, kind of offhandedly, in a much earlier episode, I believe everyone on the planet should write their movie. I do believe that. And I believe that because today, it's no longer about the mass reach. Here's the difference between the big studio movies and the little indie films that are made and distributed on iTunes or through streaming that don't get that big sort of distribution thing. The difference is, if you make a movie for $200 million, remember we talked about you're going to have to make 500 plus. It's probably closer to $1 billion, but you're going to have to make $500 million plus to sort of recoup. So if you're going to sell that many tickets and get that much interest just to be able to break even, the kinds of stories you have to tell at that high level become very broad general audience stories. It can't be too offensive, it can't be too this, it can't be too that. It has to fit within these sort of narrow parameters. And that's what the studios do, is they sit there and they crunch numbers and they use focus groups, they do test screening audiences, and they figure out what's going to appeal to the most possible people so that we can recoup the money that we invested in this project. If you're making an indie film, for, let's say, $100,000, let's say if you're making an indie film for $10,000, you don't need to sell that many tickets to recoup your money. And that's kind of the key sort of understanding about this. I believe everybody should make a film. That doesn't mean everybody's film is going to be the #1 box office sensation. What that does mean is that everybody can get their stories and their voice and their vision and their perspective out there. Now, it is my belief that to write screenplays well, to write screenplays at a professional level, it's almost impossible to do without full understanding, knowledge, and awareness of the production process, the film engine, the movie mechanism. I think a lot of people look at a screenplay's pages, or they have idea, watch something on TV and they have an idea for a movie, and they imagine the idea for the movie, but they don't have really much clue about how that becomes reality, the mechanism of the production. And so when they create something, they're creating something on the page. And I say this as somebody who's read a lot of stuff that comes in. I think that what they've written on the page is demonstrates, shows to the reader, a knowledgeable reader, shows to the reader that they don't understand the production process. And if you don't understand the production process, then you don't understand that writing a $500 million film and trying to sell it to somebody who's going to make a movie for $100,000, like you're going to have to cheap out. So how do I hit this? So if you have, let's say you have big visual effects in your story, I can make big visual effects on a tiny little budget, but they're going to be limited by the budget and by the skills of the people who you'd be able to hire at that budget. And so if you're creating something like that, it's going to be cheap if you make it too cheap. And if it's too cheap, then that will affect the viewer's experience of the movie, and therefore probably the impact of the film itself. So understanding those elements, understanding those dynamics, understanding the budgetary nature and the production logistics of filmmaking, if you understand that stuff, that helps you think about creatively about the story that you're creating, so that you're creating something that's in sync with the needs of the producer at whatever budget level you're writing at. So, for example, if I'm making let's say I'm making a little no-budget film. If I'm making a little no-budget film, I literally don't have any money to pay for big visual effects. If that's what I set out to try to make, then if we write something into the film that has a big visual effect, we either destroy our budget, or we destroy our film, or it all crumbles and falls apart. It doesn't look real or authentic to the viewer. If instead, knowing how that works, you say, well, I can't include this big effect because the budget is this. What if we tell the story this way? Now, you're not writing for the producer. You're not appeasing them by changing your story in this way. You're figuring out how to tell your story within the parameters, the production parameters, that are going to make that story legitimately viable to be produced. Does that make sense? So if it doesn't make sense, ask a question or comment. I think it does, but I know this stuff, so you tell me. We'll elaborate on it in a future episode. So my approach to all this is I have been teaching writers now for nearly 20 years. Most don't persist. Most don't follow through. Partly because, as I've said before, I think they quit because there was not the incentive along the way. So my thought was, why don't we create a scenario, an independent film studio, where we're making projects, where writers are writing things for production, and in that way, the writers will be able to they'll be able to see firsthand, taking an idea from your own head, turning it into something, and then having someone else turn that into a movie, and all the ups and downs and twists and turns that come with that, the problems that the production faces because they don't have money, or the actor's not capable of delivering the emotional nuance of the line, and so the line changes its meaning, and suddenly that changes the whole nature of the story. Little things like that. If you understand the limitations of the production that you're writing for, then that's going to enable you to actually create things that are more in sync with what producers need. And then you're not just some person knocking on their door with a script going, hey, you want to make a movie? You want to make a movie? Instead, they know, because they're able to talk to you about it, that you have the skill to be able to finesse something, to creatively imagine for this particular job, which is production, writing for production, screenwriting. Okay, so my thought was, that doesn't exist in the world. There's no place where that happens. So my thought was, I want to make lots of movies. I want to start an independent film studio. Why don't I marry the two ideas And why don't we create an independent film studio where we're more or less teaching writers how to write for production? Well, I can't just go out and, charge for that. At the end of the day, I need to have writers who... A lot of people find out that I want to build an independent film studio. They say, what kind of movies do you want? Or I've got projects to pitch. I probably have the thing that you're looking for. I assure you 99.9% chance you don't. Simply because I've looked at so many projects over the years. I don't want to be cynical or negative. It's quite possible that you do have the right project. But in my experience, that's not the case. So I can't just pull a bunch of writers out of the crowd and say, okay, let's write for production. Because if we do that, they're not going to have the skills that we need, the core level skills, the story development skills, the character building skills, the thematic building skills, creating symbol and metaphor within your story, and make sure that the pacing is effective and the emotional roller coaster has its ups and downs, and all of this is serving the market that you're trying to reach and hitting that target audience, so that on a business side you can build the audience you're trying to build. If writers don't have those skills, then they're not going to be able to write for production. It's like you need a base level, and then you need to be able to write for production, and then you're ready for the real world, right? Then you're ready for the professional sort of marketplace. So what I thought I would do is basically try to build this. Now, this series here, the Daily Prompt, there's no way for me to take you through that process. I have an idea for a video coming up that will talk about that. That's going to talk about the difference between the Daily Prompt and FAST Screenplay. But as a sort of, to give you a sort of hint of it, the Daily Prompt is about giving you a daily action prompt. The only way that you're going to be able to move forward is by taking action every single day. The only way you're going to get closer to it is to take action every day. But I can't take you step by step through that process, because I don't know where you are in the process now, and I haven't laid the solid foundation at the beginning. There's no way to do that in this context. I'll go into it again later in an upcoming video. But I do need you to have those skills. I do need you to be able to demonstrate those skills. In theory, I could open up a call for entries, some submissions, but I've done that already in the past. I spent 18 years doing that, and the projects are just not actually viable. The projects don't understand what it is I'm trying to do. The writers don't necessarily have the skills. I need to know that you have the skill of alignment. I need to know, which we'll talk about probably in the next week or so. I need to know that you have the ability for, if I give you a note, for you to be able to go, okay, I know how to take that note and turn it into something, because that is an essential skill for professional level screenwriting, right? So I need people to know this process. So what I've decided to do is I've decided to create a module at the end of FAST Screenplay called the Writer's Room, where once you've gone through this process, you have all these skills. We know you have these skills because it's step by step, and it's the way it's designed to give you those skills at this point. You can't get to this point without having those skills, basically. Now you're ready for the writer's room. Now you go into the writer's room. We develop the projects. We then go out and produce them. You see the difference. You get the credit. You get the percentage ownership in the project. You are a professional writer. You're going to get credit, all that sort of stuff. Then you learn those skills. You then have that takeaway thing that we talked about in yesterday's video. You have the film to be able to show people. As long as we do this right, as long as we do this carefully, you're going to actually have a good quality film, right? And then with your spec project, your passion project that you want to take elsewhere, then you do it. So that's my strategy, right? So my strategy for this show is to expand the audience, to help people understand these new opportunities. Now, I don't think it would be ethical of me to just simply sell that to you. I believe, for ethics reasons, that I need to teach you and give away and offer you everything you need to be able to go do this yourself without me. I'm not here to take your money. I'm here to get writers on board who want to learn this stuff and develop this stuff that we then together go out and make films. And we all benefit from it. That's my strategy. And my hope is that by building this audience through the daily prompt, through as we expand. I want to talk about how story applies to everything. Story does not just apply to screenwriting. It doesn't just apply to this. The reason I'm so passionate about everyone has their own window on the world. Everyone needs to be able to turn that into stories to share with other people, because that's how the human mind connects. The reason I'm so passionate about that is because you have stories, you have ideas, you have insights that can radically change my life and my perspective, but you have to be able to share those with me. Everyone does, because everyone's seeing a different angle on our world, right? So my goal is to expand this out so that there's the daily prompt is about prompting you to take action, whether you're a screenwriter, whether you're a creative person, whether you want to write TV, whether you want to write film. Eventually, we're going to expand it to that. We start by focusing on the screenwriting, on the storytelling, on all the techniques, all that kind of stuff, so that we can build the thing which enables us to create the films, which shows that side of it, which continues to build and expand it. So that, I don't even know if that was totally clear. It's clear in my head. Let me know if it was unclear. Pop it in the comments, and I'll follow up in an upcoming video. I think the big picture and the takeaway is that you can do this without me. You don't need me. I can continue to provide you value every single day. You can go off and do it on your own. That's totally cool. And the reason I keep coming back to that, I'm almost like afraid to ask you to join me, is because I know that people switch off as soon as you ask. As soon as I ask for people to join me, they always have. They always will. Writers are super suspicious people. Okay, totally okay. I fully understand. There's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there. I get it. So, but if you can see what I'm trying to build, if you can see the goal that I'm trying to achieve, which, by the way, is not guaranteed. I can fall on my ass. This could all fail. So if you want to stay at arm's length to see if I succeed or fail first, that's okay too. But at the end of the day, I'm going to make this happen because I have this vision, because I have this passion, because I believe in the idea that we all have stories to tell. And I believe that if I can create the infrastructure for everyone to be able to tell their stories, that's the upside. That's the part of it that makes all of this worthwhile. That's the part of it, cheesy as it may sound, that changes the world. So in a nutshell, that's my roadmap strategy. That's what I'm aiming for. How do I get there? We don't have the money right now to build all these things. Frankly, I don't want an investor that drops X number of dollars or millions of dollars in cash into the project, because I want to prove concept. I want to build it from the ground up. I want to show you that anyone can make a movie. So how do I do that? I strip it back to its barest essentials, and I show you how anyone can make a movie. So our first movies that we're going to make from the Writers Room group are no and extremely low budget films. We're not even going to try to go get investors and name actors and all that stuff. I want to show you that anyone can do this, and that by doing it, that's how you develop those hidden skills that are going to make this other thing possible. So, so that's the goal. That's the roadmap strategy. I think that's clear. I don't know. Like all of these, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but hopefully I bring it back to the big picture and hopefully make it clear. If anything's unclear, please, I beg you, ask questions, comment. If you disagree with anything that I said in here, or you can see some fatal flaw in anything that I said in here, please let me know. To build this thing, I need to expand the social media presence. Part of that is going to be taking these videos, trimming them into like little quotes and little tidbits of information and memes and GIFs and pictures and all that kind of stuff. Anyone wants to help me with that? Shoot me a DM on Twitter or Instagram and let me know. But whether you join me or not, let's turn this back into a daily prompt for you. Hopefully when you stop watching this after you've commented, when you stop watching this video and you just silence your mind for a minute and really think about, really process, really personalize this. This is a different way of looking at things. This is a different approach. Hopefully you can see what I'm saying, that there's no obstacle here. There's nobody to tell me no. So I'm going to build this thing if people are interested in joining me. I mean, I already have the group, the initial group. So we are going to build this thing. How big it gets is anybody's guess at this point. But if you understand that, look back at your own project. And I would say, ask yourself, is my project that thing where I want to try to connect with the industry and get so-and-so to make my film? Is it the big cinema movie? Is it that? Or is my thing this, an actual strategic project that I can use to start opening doors? I can start making things happen. I can start making inroads. Am I aiming for the top at the very beginning? Or can I use and focus and filter my creativity so that I actually aim at strategically how to build myself up to that point? There's this weird thing in screenwriting where new writers just imagine that all they have to do is spit out a couple of pages and they could skyrocket to the top. And the people at the top have spent years and years and years and years and years and years developing their craft, mostly. And if not just in screenwriting, some come from different angles to become successful in that way. So if we think strategically about all this, how does your project fit? And what can you do to creatively alter your project to actually be a more strategic path for you? That's your prompt for today. I hope this makes sense. Please let me know in the comments. We will evolve as we go along if this isn't 100% clear. But that's sort of the big picture, I think, of my roadmap to where we're trying to go. So let me know. We'll see you tomorrow.